What a powerful tool fear can be. I mean, it's just past 11:30 here. It's actually closer to midnight, and I'm definitely violating my own sleep rules, but I just couldn't stop thinking about this passage, and I wanted to share it with you. Because, let's face it, as men, fear is something that can paralyze us or can drive us. And in my own life, I felt overwhelmed with fear in so many areas, and just uncertainty of what to do, how to handle the current political climate. I mean, our government is actively covering up the satanic sex trafficking ring and the Epstein files, and nothing's being done about it. Nobody's really saying anything. We're somehow supposed to manage finances and also prepare to lead families and also still enjoy life. How are we supposed to do all of that? So uncertain, it can be easy to just get trapped in the doom and gloom, and I've often done that. But this passage here, one that if you went to Sunday school growing up, you've heard, is one that has three important details that we can often just skip past. In John chapter 6, Jesus feeds the 5,000. And unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard this. And if you have, go read it. It's a very powerful story. For some context, Jesus is preaching in Galilee to a crowd of 20,000 people. A lot of people think it was just 5, but I was just counting the men, not the women and children. So this is a massive, massive crowd. And the crowd gets hungry. And Jesus recognizes this. Now, Jesus is fully God, so he could have just fixed the problem and fed them right there, but he does something different. He makes his men aware of the problem. In verse 5, he says to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" Why in the world is Jesus doing this? Again, he could just fix this right away. Verse 6 tells us he said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. In our lives, God will test us and make us aware of problems so that he can be glorified. This is one of the toughest things for me to deal with. There's been so many times where I've just wished God would have his booming voice come down from heaven and solve everything for me. I know that's probably been what you've prayed for too. Like, God, just give me this answer. But oftentimes that struggle of us waiting for that answer, or God revealing that problem, or convicting us in our heart, and then us figuring out what the next step is the most important part. And that's the dilemma the disciples have to deal with. They're in a seemingly impossible situation that God has handed to them. As they say here, that 200 denarii, which was almost a year's worth of wages, would not be enough to feed everybody. That's how impossible this seems. And God is just handing this to them and telling them, what are you going to do? And in our lives, we have to be prepared for that. The amount of overwhelm that I've faced just in my recent marriage, I got married just a few months ago, has been far more than I thought I could handle. God giving me more on my plate than I had ever dealt with before, and just telling me to figure it out. And in those moments, it can be sink or swim. But the good news is we don't have to swim alone. And this second piece of this story is the most famous and the most important for us to understand. After the disciples realize they're faced with an impossible situation, they just do what they can and they go looking for answers. And they find a boy who had 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, I don't know about you, and I don't know how good you were at math growing up. I certainly wasn't. That was my worst subject. But I don't think that's enough to feed 20,000 people. But this boy gave all that he had to God. And you know what God did? He fed all 20,000 people. And that's what God is asking from us. He's not asking for us to have all the answers. He's not asking for us to be perfect in our business or in our marriage or to have all the answers when it comes to political issues. But he is asking us to just approach him with what we have. And he is going to work in that. God is asking for you to be faithful, not fruitful. And I say this to you as much as I say it to me, because right now in certain areas of my life, I need that reminder. We all have to be faithful to God and just give him what we have and just watch him work, because he is going to every single time. Now, we know this piece of the story. We know how Jesus worked through this little boy's faith and turned 5 loaves and 2 fish into meals for 20,000 people. But we often miss the story that comes right after this. And I believe this one is the one that has had the most profound impact on me. It's in John 6 here, but it's also in Matthew 15, giving us a little bit more detail. After feeding the 20,000 people, Jesus sends the disciples in a boat across the sea, and he himself withdraws to go pray with the Father. And as men, we need to be doing this as well, isolating ourselves in time of prayer. But that's a different story for a different day. But anyways, the disciples, after having this massive mountaintop experience, seeing the work of God, are in a horrific situation. They are overwhelmed in a terrible storm with waves crashing into the boat. And on the water, they see this shadow They see this man walking and they're petrified in fear, and they realize it's Jesus. And what Peter does is he says, Lord, if it is you, allow me to walk on the water with you. I find a lot of myself in Peter, and I'm sure you do as well, because of his passion and his incredible ability to screw things up at times. But after walking on the water towards Jesus in this act of faith, he loses sight of God. He looks at his circumstances, the waves, the risk, the fear, and he begins to fall into the water. And what Jesus says to him in this moment as he pulls him out of the water is, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Man, that is convicting. There's been so many times in my life where I have seen God work. I mean, I had 3 brain surgeries in just a couple months, over a dozen seizures. God healed me from that. And yet, just a few weeks later, I'm right back into this moment, doubting God, wondering, why aren't you there? Why don't you hear me? And I feel like that is the story of so many of us. We forget the work of God. We forget the goodness of God. And we go look at our circumstances and we doubt him. So what I challenge you to do is, first and foremost, remember where God has worked in your life. There is evidence of that. You've seen him move in your life. And I promise you, if you continue to have faith in him, he's only going to move more. And you have to understand that he is bigger than your circumstances. I say that to you as much as I say it to myself, because it can be so easy to get sidetracked by all these things, all the weight of the world that we have to hold as men. But when we lose sight of him and we just look at our circumstances, we are going to fall into them, just like Peter did. But Jesus is always there to pull us out. He's going to remind us, he's going to convict us and say, why did you doubt? We have to ask ourselves the same thing. Why are you doubting God in your moments right now? Has God ever failed to provide for you? Has God ever given you a circumstance that he couldn't handle? There's certainly been ones where you couldn't handle it. Spoiler alert, that's pretty much everything. And if you think that you can handle certain things and God can handle the others, you've got a massive ego. I say that to you as much as myself again, because all things must be given to him. And the more we give over to him, the more opportunities he has to turn our 5 loaves and 2 fish into meals for 20,000 people. That is his power. So remember that today. First and foremost, that the Lord is going to test you. He's going to reveal problems to you and see how you respond. But he's not asking for you to have the perfect solution. He's asking for you to have faith. And then he's asking you not to take your eyes off him. Because when you do, and you look into the circumstances in the world, all the stuff you're faced with as a man, you're going to crumble under that pressure. That is how you become a strong man of God. So brother, regardless of what you're going through right now, regardless of the storms you have in your life, I want you to know from a brother who's going through a lot, that Jesus Christ, the God of this book, the God of the men in the Bible who saw these massive miracles, is still your God today. And you can trust him. He has the power. He has the strength. He's got a whole lot more than you. And I promise when you give this to him, he's going to give you what you need in order to get through this. May God bless you, brother. And may you use the little faith you have to overcome the massive fear that you have in your life. I promise you, it's worth it.